The faint hum of the Nashira's engine resonated through the ship's quiet halls, only interrupted by the soft thuds of bare feet on cold metal flooring. Captain Arden Kale sat hunched at his desk, a forgotten cup of bitter synth brew beside him. The weight pressing on him wasn't just the endless drift through space, it was the presence of the being in the doorway. No, not just any being. Not human. She was something else entirely. Her skin shimmered with an otherworldly glow under the ship's soft lighting. Wisps of her long, flowing hair glowed faintly, strands of bioluminescence dancing as though alive. There was something delicate yet haunting about her, a blend of celestial beauty and raw, exposed vulnerability. "Captain Kale," she spoke, her voice sweet and melodic, though tinged with uncertainty. "Is there something wrong with me?" He blinked, startled out of his reverie, lifting his gaze to meet hers. "What? Why would you think that?" She stepped into the room slowly, her movements graceful, yet with an undeniable hesitancy. "You haven't claimed me, not since the ceremony," she continued, her voice soft. "On my home world of Salvovara, when a mate isn't claimed, it signals rejection. Does that mean you're uninterested?" A weight lodged in Arden's chest as he stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Zafir, don't ever think that. You're not something that was just given to me. You're not property." Her large, luminous eyes flickered in confusion. For a moment, she tilted her head, as if processing his words like a curious animal. "But I was presented to you during the accord. You accepted me. That is Salvovaran custom, the ritual for claiming a mate. You accepted me, and that means rejection would be an insult. Were you forced into this?" Arden sighed deeply, rubbing his eyes. "I accepted because I had to, Zara. The council insisted, and rejecting you would have jeopardized the peace talks." Her expression softened as she moved closer, sitting at the edge of his desk, bare feet swaying slightly. "I don't understand," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've cared for me, kept me safe, even healed me when I was hurt. In Salvovaran tradition, that's the role of a bonded mate. But you've never touched me." Arden's voice grew strained. "I only did what anyone would do. I didn't know how else to act." Zara looked away, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. "Then I am confused." And so was he. It had been almost half a year since he had first met her. After a trade mission to the Salvovaran system, the diplomatic delegation had led Zara to him, quiet, reserved, with nothing but a thin copper bracelet on her wrist and a blank expression on her face. She hadn't said a word then, only bowed her head. Arden had protested, of course. Loudly. But the Salvovaran elders had insisted. "She is loyal," they had said. "She is pure, untainted, a perfect companion for your kind." Flashback. The trade ceremony. Everything about it had felt off, but backing out of the deal would have been disastrous for the fragile treaty in progress. He hadn't known what to do with Zara, so he had given her a room, more like a cabin, not a cage. Books, clothes, a translator unit, and most importantly, freedom. He treated her with kindness, like a member of the crew, if not better. Zara was smart, gentle, even saved his life once when the airlock malfunctioned. But there was always distance. And yet she stayed. That evening, after a long, solitary meal, Zara had returned to the galley. Her robe had been replaced with something more formal, an outfit made from intricate Salvovaran fabric, with silver threads spiraling across it. "May I sit?" she asked, her voice softer now. "Of course," he answered, gesturing to the seat across from him. She slid into the booth and folded her hands, her expression serious. "I've tried to understand you," she began. "I've read your books, studied your ways, even watched those strange human shows you archive." Arden smiled faintly, feeling the weight of their unspoken distance. He wasn't sure how to respond to her earnestness, to her effort to bridge the gap between them. There was so much he still didn't understand about her, about what she wanted from him, what she needed. But one thing was certain, he couldn't keep running from this strange bond that tied them together. Not bad for a pair of Nashars, Arden chuckled softly to himself, but his amusement quickly faded as Zara leaned forward, her golden eyes searching his. You say I'm not just a possession, she said, her voice steady but filled with confusion, that you didn't accept me as a mate, but you haven't sent me away. You've been kind to me. You meet my gaze and listen when I speak about my world. Those are sacred gestures in Salvovaran culture. Arden exhaled, shifting uncomfortably. Maybe humans and Salvovarians were just not meant to be. Maybe we can't truly understand each other. Zara looked down, her shoulders drooping slightly. Then, am I not enough for you? Her words hit him like a punch, not because of her vulnerability, but because of the loneliness that seemed to seep from her very being. Zara, he said softly, walking closer, you are more than enough. But I didn't want to take advantage of someone who didn't have a choice. I didn't want you to feel used. She looked at him with a quiet intensity, her eyes searching. But you don't understand, she murmured. Salvovarians may follow rituals, but they don't bind us unless we accept them within ourselves. I've watched you, Arden. I've seen how you speak to broken systems as though they were wild creatures. How you pause before the stars when you think no one is watching. Her eyes met his fully now, and he could see a flicker of understanding in her gaze. I have come to know you, and I want to be known in return. The next day, the Nashira docked at a lonely station floating above the Hekran drift. Arden stayed behind to unload cargo, leaving Zara on board. His thoughts were a whirlwind. Had he been a fool to resist what had been slowly growing between them? Was he afraid of love, or just too steeped in guilt and loss? As he walked back toward the ship, his eyes caught a vendor's stall selling Salvovaran crystal crafts. Among the intricate pieces, one item stood out, a pendant shaped like two intertwined comets. The vendor, an older Salvovaran woman, smiled knowingly. For a bonded one? She asked, nodding at the pendant. Arden nodded quietly, paying for it and tucking it into his jacket. When he returned to the ship, the lights were dim. Zara stood near the observation window, her gaze fixed on the stars. I thought you might not return, she whispered softly. I nearly didn't, Arden replied, his voice steady but full of honesty. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was scared. Not of you, he corrected himself quickly, but of what it would mean if I admitted how much I care. Zara turned to him, her expression softening. Then stop speaking like a captain. Speak as a man. He moved toward her, stepping into her space, close enough to see the faint rise and fall of her breath. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the pendant, placing it gently in her hand. If I were to ask you to be with me, not because of duty or obligation, but because I choose you, what would you say? Her smile bloomed like a flower, warm and radiant. I would say, finally. They stood there together, neither of them in a rush, no wild passion in the air, just the quiet, sacred presence of one another. It wasn't about mating rituals or traditions. It was about trust, understanding, and love that had slowly grown, not from duty, but from the small, deliberate choices each had made to care for the other, to protect, and to stay. Later that night, as they lay together, Zara curled close to him, not because of a sense of obligation, but because she wanted to. I used to wonder, she whispered, her voice soft and dreamy, if I had failed you. If there was something wrong with me. Arden touched her cheek gently, a soft smile on his face. There's nothing wrong with you, Zara. You just deserved more than I knew how to give. She smiled, her eyes shining with quiet peace. Then let's learn together. As the Nashira drifted through the vast silence of space, its engines humming steadily beneath them, the bond between Arden and Zara deepened, quiet but unwavering. Their connection, once clouded by duty, now flourished in the absence of expectations, nurtured by understanding and mutual respect. What had begun as a complicated transaction, a ceremonial gift wrapped in foreign customs, had transformed into something far more meaningful. It was no longer about what either of them was supposed to do, but about what they chose to do together, in the quiet moments that shaped them both. Arden found himself observing her more often now. Zara, who had become so much more than the Salvovaran ritual that had once bound them. He saw her for the intelligence in her eyes, the quiet strength she carried in her every movement, the resilience hidden behind her graceful exterior. She was not a creature of obligation, but a partner in her own right. Zertu had learned more about him than he ever anticipated. She saw the complexities behind his reserved exterior, the moments of vulnerability he kept hidden from the world. The captain who held the weight of his crew's safety was also the man who stood before her, uncertain and open to what their future might hold. Their relationship grew as the stars above them shifted in their distant constellations, slow yet inevitable. There were no grand gestures, no sweeping declarations of love. Instead, their bond was forged in the quiet conversations late at night, in shared glances when words weren't enough, in the moments of solace they found together. When the Nashira finally approached its next destination, the horizon of new worlds and new possibilities stretched out before them, Arden no longer felt the weight of his past decisions. He had made the choice, time and time again, to stay. And so had she. "Whatever comes next," Zara had said one night as they watched the stars together, "we'll face it together without fear." For the first time in a long while, Arden allowed himself to believe it. They were no longer captain and gifted, but two souls who had chosen to share their journey for reasons beyond obligation. They had found in each other not only companionship, but love, something both rare and precious in the cold vastness of space. And with that knowledge, he was ready for whatever lay ahead, as long as she was by his side.